one of the angles on quantum that I found interesting after having a discussion with a hedge fund friend of mine was the concept of Big Bang versus a gradual shift. Will it be this kind of gradual adoption, or is it going to be this disruptive Big Bang, kind of rip the rug out from under you type of experience? And none of us really know the answer, right? But there's the concept that we see in a lot of the cloud providers' roadmaps, right, where it's an evolution. It's something that's growing and evolving over, year after year. Certain compute becomes more and more available, and you can solve for very simplistic problems and get more and more complex as the processing power evolves. And so there's a scalability within that seems to imply that it's gradual. But then there's other aspects of the quantum disruption and revolution, so to speak, that will be looked at slightly differently. Things like cybersecurity and encryption, right? Where once that's broken, and that has the ability to be broken, that has a catastrophic effect and a ripple effect across a million things, right? So, there's a lot of things that, that have to kind of be considered. And the road mapping concept within the cloud providers also implies this concept of quantum advantage as opposed to quantum supremacy, which is interesting because it almost says, okay, quantum supremacy across everything isn't here yet, but there are still certain use cases that make sense to apply quantum technologies to because it's more powerful and we have the processing power to do that. So, that also lends itself into the idea that it's a gradual change. But either way, we all have to figure out how we're going to prep and plan and be ready for this, right? So I think from the hedge fund space or the trading space, the questions would be, when does your strategy gain its quantum advantage? How do you control the cost of those resources and what you're going to deploy them on? How are you going to choose which problems you're going to solve with quantum versus classical, and which workloads you're gonna run? And how do you integrate it with your existing tech stack? I think that's the biggest thing Engine is trying to figure out, right? We're deploying the infrastructure right now. We're trying to make that as simple and off the shelf as possible when it comes to the deployment of data solutions. So our biggest question is, how does that integrate back, and how can we optimize that as much as possible and make it as off the shelf as possible? And I flip it around to anyone watching this. Like, what do you think? Especially if you're in the trading space or hedge fund space, like, how do you see this evolving your strategy, and how do you see this, potentially giving you a competitive advantage, but at the same time, also facing the cost associated with it, and really making sure that you're getting your ROI. I'd love to hear from you.